I think nurses have a huge voice in healthcare. We need to use that voice. We need to be empowered to use that voice.
We would call us lifers because all of us went into NICU and we never left.
I'm originally from the reservation, and I saw a lot of health disparities between my culture and healthcare, and I wanted to mend that gap.
In the nearly 3 years since COVID-19 first arrived in Colorado, nurses have been at the forefront of that fight. I'm Dana Knowles, and this winter, nurses saw a trio of respiratory viruses sending people to hospitals: COVID-19, the flu, and RSV, a combination that mostly impacted children.
Full transparency, I don't think nurses are totally okay right now, especially in the pulmonary world or in like pediatric world. So many people inside had to shift when we created spaces to take on these patients. People who typically do OR or typically do other trained specialties had to shift and take care of these kids. Every year we expect a respiratory season. We expect influx in patients and in disease. This year it's been a little bit interesting where we've had three. We've had RSV, flu A, COVID, so that all kind of converged at once. And we knew that there were going to be some influxes, but with them all coming in at once and how sick everybody got and the strands that we saw, it was really overwhelming, in convergence with some of the pediatric facilities in the local area shut down their pediatric units in the sight of nursing shortage. All of that kind of happened. And then we had an influx of patients being seen. And so it was just, coming in every day, doing your calling, doing what you signed up for, taking care of these patients and these families that we love. Well, my name is Laura Jaramillo, and I'm a nurse at Children's Hospital Colorado. I've worked here for 10 years, primarily in pulmonary, both inpatient, and currently I'm outpatient in pulmonary. I do interstitial lung disease mostly. To be candid, coming off of a couple years of a respiratory pandemic, and then you're just ready for this next season to kind of maybe have a lull, or you're ready for a little bit of relief. It's a lot. It's stressful to have a family when you hear the kid on the other side who you're he really needs to be seen, she needs to be seen. You need to go to the emergency department, and they're I don't want to go for 11 hours to standing room only. And as a parent, you get that, and you're well, right, but your child still needs to be seen. And so really meeting families where they're at, but making sure that kids are still where they need to be was really stressful. You go home and you think about, did they go? Did they be seen? Are they home struggling? Are we getting them the things they need? On the outpatient pulmonary side, it's an interesting aspect because not only are we taking care of these really sick kids, but we also have our daily tasks, helping families who went home with oxygen, who went home with CPAPs and all the medication shortage, and making sure they're getting everything they have and they need. And we're calling around to pharmacies to make sure that we're finding the medication for them. So we're taking care of pulmonary at baseline, on top of this influx of what's needed. Me personally, having 3 kiddos who are hey mom, why are you working Christmas Eve and Christmas and New Year's Eve and New Year's? And why aren't you with us on the holiday? Having to really explain to your own kids, hey, thanks for letting me go out and help take care of the community. I'll give you some time, and making sure that I'm giving them quality time on their own. Making sure it's okay that my house is fine if it's not clean right now. Lowering my expectation of myself, and that my self-care is important. Just listening to music, taking baths, trying to get outside. I've been trying to be better about walking, getting outside of the walls, just taking a breath. I'm lucky that I have a really, really supportive husband and partner that we just shift who needs to take care of what responsibility. And always during respiratory season, he knows that the community, the region needs nurses. We're experiencing historical volumes off of a pandemic, where there was a lot that interrupted who we are in a community and society. And so having to navigate your career amidst that, the reason why so many people show up and come back is because we care about patients. It's a calling for a lot of us. You can't just like not come to work, because if you're not coming to work, then that affects kids, that affects families, that affects the community, the region. It's a waterfall effect. And I mean, your mission and your drive to care for families and patients is what you show up.
How's it going, my friend?
Even with all the passion in the world, showing up has been hard for nurses. Recent national surveys show about half have considered leaving their jobs. Lori Jackson was one of them and describes a swirl of emotions through the pandemic.
We were the ones holding your loved one's hand when they passed away. We were the ones when they're asking for their family, explaining they can't. We're the ones who have to call you on the phone that tell you that, you know, your loved one's not doing well or that they've passed. And we were the ones who sometimes stayed away from our families because we didn't want to carry it home to them. I remember working with grandparents, a husband and wife grandparent, who their teenage grandson that lived with them brought COVID home to them after he snuck out. And his grandfather died.
Try not to do that.
We didn't want people to die by themselves. You know, we had patients who would arrest, and we would be coding patients, you know, doing compressions on patients in our full PPE. And, you know, if you've ever tried to do, you know, run a marathon in a plastic gown, in a mask, with your goggles on, it's horribly difficult. I mean, physically it's exhausting. You're hot, you're spent. I worked in the ICU, so I was an ICU nurse through the whole pandemic. I worked in the ICU. So initially when COVID started, I think you started hearing a lot about the short-staffed. At that time, a lot of the nurses were getting sick themselves with COVID, so it was kind of adding to a lot of the problems. Burnout is real. I mean, I think part of the pieces that we forget about is things closed. Nurses had no outlets. You had no outlets to focus on your mental health or to do any of that. I know I spent many months in Texas when I went down there to work COVID, and the only thing that got me through was just going to bed and getting back up knowing that I had to work another day. I mean, and that's what it was. There was no other outlet, and so you burn out. You have no way to. It's work. I got to go to bed. I got to get up and work again. When I was working at one facility, I had to tag my name on my mask, and then they would go and sanitize it at night, and then the next morning I would pick up the same mask and wear it for 3 days. I worked at another facility where at the end of the shift you would just drop your mask in a bag and they would sanitize it, and you just picked one up the next morning, not knowing who had it on the day before. For me, I love nursing. I'm still passionate about nursing. I've stepped away from working in the ICU. I think some of the things that I had to deal with it's like I'm just not ready to go back. I've kind of led more into being a mentor to those who are struggling, working with those people who are struggling and helping them find their passion again. Sometimes it's the conversations, or sometimes it's just kind of being there for them to let them tell their stories. I think healthcare has learned a lot from COVID. If we were to come across another pandemic, I don't think there's any way that you can emotionally prepare for it. But I think if there's just has to be that passion for helping people and working in nursing that has to come through.
Passion is a word a lot of nurses use in reference to their jobs. For two nurses just starting their careers, their passion came from their roots and was celebrated in a big, culminating moment.
Oh, and Vanessa, I know you're here. Thank you for driving all the way up from Pueblo. You ready? Yes. St. Mary Corwin, EDEE.
My name is Vanessa Tom. I'm originally from Gallup, New Mexico. I moved to Colorado in 2006, and I went into the ED residency program at Centura.
Today is the matching day for the first residency cohort. They started in this residency about 8 weeks ago, and today's the day they learn about which area they're going to be beginning their careers in.
I'm originally from the reservation, and I saw a lot of health disparities between my culture and healthcare, and I wanted to mend that gap. I wanted to be that bridge that helps my people, my Native American people, my Navajo people. There's all aspects of life, and when you're a nurse, you're just a huge asset. You're just a huge part of that care that they can get from being a Navajo person. So.
My name is Scarlett Lang. I live in Colorado Springs. I've been here for about 8 years. I decided to pursue my career. I've always known I wanted to be a nurse since I was really young, but with the military lifestyle and moving around every 3 years, it's been a little bit difficult. So I decided to stay home and hold down the home front. And now it's my turn and I'm able to, get out there now. The first time I wrote RN, I was like, oh my gosh, we could do this now.
I'm putting RN.
Yes, you have to. It's empowering. This is really exciting for all of us because we've kind of been, been getting the feel around of the hospital and different instructors and different units. And so to have this culminating moment of, all right, where are we going to be now, is really great.
It's an important piece to our strategy around making sure we have optimum nursing levels within the facilities. We want our nurses that come and begin their careers with us to have long, illustrious careers within the Centura community. The retention rates are higher when you have a program like this. So here we are, and today's a big day for us.
Ready? Yes, I'm ready. Okay, St. Francis ICU Day. Today I matched in the ICU at St. Francis, and I'm really happy because St. Francis has some really good people that want to show you and teach you, if you're willing, and I'm ready for that.
I chose St. Mary Corwin because it's the only Centura ER in Pueblo, Colorado. So I did my residency program there and I matched, so I'm really happy. I'm very satisfied with the facility I matched at.
I've realized, this is my calling. I really do want to help people out, but more so, I feel like I have a certain sense of personality. I've gone through something that I might be able to help somebody in their hardest time. So that's, I think, what keeps me going and what I feel like my calling is.
When you have a calling, you don't ignore it. That's what these nurses seem to be telling us, especially Eric Alvarez, who often finds himself to be the only man in the room.
There just are not a lot of men in this profession. My name is Eric Alvarez. I am currently a registered nurse in labor and delivery at Denver Health, as well as a student for the nurse midwifery program at CU College of Nursing. When I was doing my nursing program, that's when I got into my obstetrics class. And I learned about the healthcare disparities of people of color, particularly women of color, in this country. And I was just dumbfounded by the statistics. I was just surprised at how bad it was. A country who spends the most on healthcare in the world doing terrible justice to women of color. And my professor at the time, who was a midwife, said, well, have you ever heard about midwives? And that was my introduction into midwifery care and what that looks like. And that was exactly what I was looking for. And that's what led me here today. The first question that people ask me is why you, as a man, want to be in this field? And usually my immediate response is wanting to take care of people has nothing to do with your gender. Wanting to give a woman her baby that she's been waiting 9 months for, to say congratulations, you did it, is something that is not gender specific at all. Growing up, my mom, she was a single mom to 3 kids, had my older brother at 16 and me at 18. She, single, teen mom, Hispanic. This country was not made for her, and yet she had to make it through this country with 3 black kids. And she did it, she made it. And she would always tell us that we could do anything we aspire to do. And I'm like, if this woman is telling me that I can do it, I know I can do it. Midwives are members of the community. They service the community to build the community and be a part of it. Nurse midwives do more than just know you at that time of day. They know you outside the hospital, inside the home, at work. They are more concerned not just with your health, but do you have child care? Do you have access to healthy food? Do you have transportation? It's knowing more than just what you are in that moment. OBGYNs have been delivering babies for 100, 200 years. Midwives have been doing it for a millennia. So I'm just trying to get us back to normal. More midwives is getting back to normal. Patients who just were absolutely excited, just not because there was a man in the room, but because, oh my God, my nurse is Black. How amazing is that? Or when I speak Spanish to my Spanish-speaking patients, they're just like, oh my God, thank goodness. I've noticed that a lot of dads get a lot more involved in the room when I'm in there, because they're like, wait, this guy is supporting my wife? That doesn't really feel, let me go in there and let me do something. Or okay, if he can change my baby's diaper, maybe I can change my baby's diaper too. So they're like, okay, because I can see that there's a guy doing this, then maybe I don't need to be on the opposite side of the curtain while my wife is having our baby. What's so exciting about the future is I don't know what that looks like, but I do know the basis of it is servicing the community in some type of way. I know I want to work more in a hospital setting, mainly because that's where people who are on public health insurance go, and those who don't have insurance. So those are the patients I want to see. Recently, I have considered maybe overseas as well, because what I like about women's health, what I like about labor and delivery is it doesn't just happen in the US, it happens all over the world. So I want to see that aspect too as well. But I want to be somewhere that the focus of it is the community.
Such an inspiring man to talk to, who, like many of the nurses we know, lead by example. That also includes one who was recently honored as one of the top nursing educators of the year.
I can think of several times in the past 3 months that patients have had an impact on me. I mean, you can't help but be moved by their stories, and you can't help but feel such an honor and privilege to be with that person at one of the most vulnerable times in their lives. And to have that connection and to have somebody say to you, oh my gosh, you made such a difference in this particular point in my life. And that happens fairly commonly for nurses. I mean, it just does. And it's what we do. In a nutshell, it's what we do. And that's what keeps you in nursing.
So the National League of Nursing is one of the largest professional organizations in nursing. And this is the year of the nurse educator. There's over 22,000 nurse educators in the country, and they chose 5 as nurse educators of the year. So for Tammy to be identified as one of the top 5 nurse educators in the country is a really, really prestigious award.
I was nominated by 2 of my colleagues here at the College of Nursing to receive that award.
I've had the great privilege of teaching with Tammy, where we've co-taught classes together, and her creativity is without bounds.
My name is Barbara Klontz, and I'm a UCAN student for a bachelor's in nursing, and Tammy has been one of my teachers. Tammy is about a couple of things. Kindness, always. She has a really bright personality and lots of energy, but also she really likes being with people, and she treats everyone that she's with like they're a friend or a close acquaintance, and so it's really easy to be with her.
Anything, sterile dressing change. So I've been here for over 3 decades here at the College of Nursing. So I received my master's degree and my doctorate degree from here, from CU. My passion really is teaching. That really brings me a lot of joy. My students bring me a lot of joy to be in the classroom and to be able to really impact them in such a profound way, to think that you are educating the next generation of nurses.
I think it can't be understated how much Tammy inspires people. One of the data points I included in her nomination was, if you go to the College of Nursing Facebook page, anytime Tammy Spencer is mentioned, students from last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, comment on how much of an impact Tammy Spencer had on their entry into the profession and their ongoing career in terms of inspiring them.
I have also found somewhat of a passion for policy making, and so have been involved during COVID with being able to get emergency orders signed by the governor to help lessen the burden in terms of clinical hours that are required for graduation. And so that in turn helped to fill the pipeline at a time when nurses were leaving during COVID. I think that more and more policy is needed around nursing. I think nurses have a huge voice in healthcare. We need to use that voice. We need to be empowered to use that voice. I think about a nursing theorist, Virginia Henderson, who very succinctly described nursing as Nursing is work of the head, it's work of the heart, and it's work of the hands. It's work of the head because you have to know your stuff. Like, you have to have that science background, you gotta have that knowledge. It's work of the heart because you can't do this work without being passionate about it. You can't. And it's work of the hands in that it's, yes, it's a skill, it's a putting in an IV, it's all of that, but it's also hands. You are handing a newborn for the first time to their mother. You are holding the hand of a patient who's dying. You can't help but be moved by that. So that's what nursing means.
From the end of life to the very beginning of it, nurses are there to hold our hands and care for us throughout their careers. That is especially evident with these 4 nurses who retired last year after a combined 135 years working in the NICU.
At Children's Hospital Colorado, the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit is a world-renowned regional referral center. So we service the needs of the very sickest newborns in a 10-state region.
I mean, every baby's different. I mean,
and every family's different.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people that I have told over the years that I work in the NICU, they think, oh, you're just holding babies or they're just preemies. Well, we might have some preemies, but usually these are preemies that have more than just a little preemie need. A lot of times they have something else going on too.
And by preemies, we're like, 16 weeks, 17 weeks premature, and they're, upwards of 500 grams. 450 grams is a pound. So if we see a 500-gram baby, that's like slightly over a pound.
Things are a little different at Children's Hospital Colorado because the babies that are born there all have some kind of condition that needs to be treated right away. So it's actually comforting, I think, for those families to see the NICU nurse at the bedside when that baby's being born.
I'm Diana Newman, and I've been a nurse since 1979. I've been at Children's for 39 years.
My name is Betsy Smith. I've been a nurse for 43 years, and the last 32 I spent at Children's Hospital Colorado in their NICU.
I'm Lillian Postma. I've been a nurse for 39 years, and I started with Children's in 2002 in the NICU.
And my name is Debbie Ferguson, and I've been a nurse since October of '77, and all of it at Children's in the NICU. And we are all retiring this year.
We would call us lifers because all of us went into NICU and we never left.
As a neonatal intensive care nurse, you were at the bedside for 12 hours. Everybody else on the team comes in and looks and goes away, but you're the one that's there for the whole 12-hour shift. So you answer their questions, you help them, take care of their baby, you help them change diapers, you take vital signs, you do everything that needs to be done for that baby in that 12-hour shift. So you get to know them on a personal level.
They could be there for a few days, they could be there for over a year.
You've just walked into a parent's worst nightmare, the worst. And many of our infants are critically ill. And our job is to show that parent how they can still parent, how they can still connect with this baby who has 15 IVs, is on a ventilator, very, very critically ill, but we find ways to help them bond even under those circumstances.
People think all we do are hold babies, and it's a little more complex than that.
I mean, to put a baby that's 1,000 grams on a mother's skin-to-skin chest who's on a ventilator and many tubes, it's a moment where everybody in the room cries. I mean, it's emotional to allow that mother to connect in that manner with her child.
Sometimes one of the hardest parts for parents, I think, is to actually focus on their baby and not the machinery.
And I think parents today are so techy that they definitely focus on the monitor and what that means, and then they need to be reeled in. Please don't touch that.
Yeah.
Please don't push those buttons,
Yeah.
please.
I mean, I think that's one of the biggest changes for all of us, being that we started as NICU nurses in the 70s. The biggest change has been Google, the internet, technology, because when we started nursing, the doctor knew the answers. And as professionals, we were looked up to.
Yeah, those times that you get to hold them and rock them and feed them and, you know.
And nothing is better than those days when you can let them give a bath or hold for the first time, because the parents will always remember you, and in turn, I think those are the days where you feel like I really made a difference.
Mm-hmm. It was a great job.
We want to thank each one of these Colorado nurses for sharing their stories, their voices, and perspectives. And we want to thank all of the nurses for their continued work and care they give our community every day. At Rocky Mountain PBS, we'll work to share voices from around the state to create a Colorado where everyone feels seen and heard. Find more stories at rmpbs.org.